What's going on YouTube? This is Schulte Shifts and Kawasaki. Today we're installing the Hepco and Becker highway bars, crash bars, what people call them. It's definitely going to help out if you drop it. They stick out pretty far.
411, I to veto this beast.
Yep.
So, and it's not even the heaviest cruiser out there.
Yep.
So.
It's pretty light. It's like right over 500 pounds. But Stevie's got the reduced reach on this. So if you girls out there, or short men, have the reduced reach set up on the Kawasaki Vulcan 650, then this video, hopefully, it'll help you out with the installation. This is the unboxing of the Hepco and Becker crash bars, engine guards, whatever you want to call them, highway bars.
No stickers.
Off the exhaust.
Alright.
Oh, look. Hardware. Alright, so the bars.
The right side.
The right side right here. Going Becker. Alright. So is it labeled right and left side?
I don't think so, but it's
common sense. It's common sense. Good.
Engine.
Alright, so these two. So we got your two bars right here. Nice welds. That is the bar that connects these two together right here and right here. So online we've read a few things in the reviews that the instructions that they give you are not very clear.
It's clear, it's just gonna be a bitch to do.
Yeah. Not necessarily, they don't really give you the tips and tricks. So we're gonna do a little step-by-step.
That's not my language.
Well, it translates also. See, like hexagon bolt.
I see.
Over here.
There's like 5 different languages.
Yeah. So now we're gonna show you guys what tools we need to get started. All right, so the tools you're gonna need to install the Hepco and Becker engine guard is a 3/8 ratchet, 1/4 inch ratchet, 1/4 inch drive ratchet, a 5mm hex. Also, I found out getting a little flex joint for the 1/4 inch helps out a lot. 5mm hex T-handle or socket, whichever you want. A 3mm hexagonal T-handle, a 10mm socket, and a 12mm socket, and a 1/2 inch opened end wrench. It's optional, a little bit of medium thread locker. So yeah, let's get to it. So this is the hardware that comes with the kit. You got the 2 longer bolts here, shorter ones, 2 little flush mount screws, the hex kits, shorter bolts, 2 nuts, and 6 washers. So first thing you're gonna do is take your 3mm hex T-handles or socket, and you unscrew this bolt right here, 3mm, that goes to this plastic cover. So once you get this bolt out, it has a washer on it, so don't lose that. You set that aside, and it's got 2 little tabs back here, and you just pry this off like that. So these 2 little tabs go into these little grommets, and that's what helps hold it in. First step after you get this cover off is you are going to remove this bolt right here, and you're gonna end up replacing it with one of the long bolts that they supply with the kit. The crash bar is gonna end up sneaking around the other side, and we're gonna use one of those nuts to screw on to hold the crash bar. So, go ahead and break this loose. This is a 12mm bolt. Always save these bolts, it's always good. You know, if you need to cheap container to hold onto these bolts. You could take like an old bottle of oil, cut it in half, and you can label it with tape, and you can just throw these in there like 12mm bolts, 10mm bolts, and you can organize them that way. Or you can go and get super OCD and you can go get organizing trays from like Home Depot or something. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove this 10mm bolt right here. End up replacing it with one of the shorter bolts. It comes with the kit. There you go. So now we are going to take these two 12mm bolts off of foot pegs because they're going to end up getting in the way when you go to install the engine guard. That way you can just drop it down without having to worry about disassembling like the brake line and all that stuff. For the reduced reach, you're going to have this little spacer washer right here, and it goes on this side between the frame, this little bushing for the pegs, and this bolt and washer. So when you take it off, don't lose this, don't lose the bolt and washer, obviously. By taking that off and loosening up this side, it's giving us a little bit of a wiggle room in multiple ways. All right, so now you're gonna take your right side crash bar, engine guard, and what you're gonna do is the bolt that we took off right here, this portion of it is gonna sneak through here around the back side, and you're gonna take your long bolt with your washer. You can kind of see through this hole right here. The other side when you get this portion of it lined up. So this is gonna sneak back through here. These two bolts right here, or these two holes right here, are gonna line up right here and right here. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to slowly, make sure you don't scratch your frame up and everything. You're gonna sneak this back, kind of like that, and rotate it a little bit. And you're gonna have to play around with it a little bit, especially with this reduced reach. It's kind of tricky sometimes to get this aftermarket stuff lined up. The trick is, so you want to get this portion right here, how it's got this outer ring right here, and this section is curved. You want to get this part back through here first. You want to get this part around to where this comes over this circle section right here on the frame, where this engine bolt goes to. And then you want to kind of work your way with this tab back here to get this through the other side. Then you can kind of move it around and you'll see the hole on the engine guard through the other side. Now you can take your 60mm bolt. This is a 13mm socket right here. Line the hole up on the other side, and then you start to thread this through once it gets lined up. These bars have a nice little opening on the other side, enough for some wiggle room in order to get this started. So you don't want to get this completely torqued all the way down. You get it snug a little bit, a little loose. That way you can move the whole bar around to get everything aligned up. Next step is you're going to take your 13mm nut that comes with it, and you're going to reach around the backhand side. And if you're hand-eye coordinated, you should just be able to reach back there. And without me looking, I've gotten it tightened up. So from the inside, you can see where this nut where we just put on right here, this is screwed through. So these bolts that we're putting through are the same thread pitch of the original bolts that came with it. So like I said, you want to keep it a little loose. That way you have room to kind of move this around and get everything set up. We're not going to tighten everything down until we get the other side on, ready and going. That way we know everything's installed in the right orientation. It's good to go. Now that you have this bolt loosely installed right here, see, you can kind of see it's very loosely installed. It's loose like your mother. This is really all the instructions are only really good for. It's telling you which bolts to put where, essentially. So it's telling you to grab the M8x30, which is the length, and the M8x16 and washer, obviously. bolts. That way you can install these upper mounting bolts right here. So, obviously, in case you guys don't know, the longer bolt would be the 30 mil, and the shorter one is the 16 millimeter. So, what it's saying to do is take the 30 millimeter bolt and put it through here. You're gonna have to use an open-end box wrench or an adjustable wrench. This is a 13 millimeter to get this completely snugged in. So that's in, loosely installed. Next is you take your 16 millimeter bolt, drop it, of course. Doesn't work if you don't drop it. And you are going to install it finger tight. The main reason why we are keeping this bar loose is because we're going to be installing this brace bar, which is going to essentially connect the two engine guards together with the 5 millimeter hex bolts over there. So they're just going to connect these two together. That way it's more rigid and it doesn't only have these three little mounting points right here holding it all together. That will essentially distribute the, if you do fall, it'll distribute the impact instead of these 3 bolts to the other side and the other 3 bolts. So you'll have more points of contact to kind of distribute the impact. Maybe later on, might install some LEDs sitting right here or something obnoxious, some speakers so we can hang out with the Harley boys, you know, blast some NSYNC or some Britney Spears, you know,
the hogs,
jamming out with them hog boys and girls. So yeah, now that we have these loosely installed, we're gonna cruise on over to the other side.
Nice pun.
Yeah, the other side is a little more difficult. You gotta get pretty sneaky with the installation of, I believe it is this bolt right here. Now we are on the left side of the bike. We're gonna take this little plastic cover off and get started on getting this engine guard side on. So you take your 3 millimeter hex T-handle or whatever you got, socket, and you go ahead and take this all the way off. This one's got 2 of the push inserts. So just get that off, get that aside so you don't lose it. And then you grab both hands and just kind of wiggle this off. So it's got 1 and 2, these little pins. So set this aside. Now what we're gonna do, remove this 12 millimeter bolt right here. And go ahead and take this 10 millimeter off. So get that one loose, or take it all the way up. Set it aside with your other bolts. And now we're going to attempt, if this dog doesn't get in the way, to sneak these little bastards in. There you go. So you kind of just maneuver it in and it'll slide right in. Now we're going to take the 60 millimeter bolt, look through this hole right here, and we'll start to screw it in by hand. Just be careful with these. Since it's not an OEM bolt, you always have to be super careful to make sure it's not cross-threading. And also another note is the 13 mil is just a little loose on this nut, but it's not bad. It still fits pretty snug. The half end open end wrench fits perfect on this bolt. Now you're gonna take your 13 millimeter nut, reach in from this side, stick it up through here. This hose gets in the way a little bit, but what you can do is you can get your hands in both ways like that, and you can kind of hand tighten it. And later on you'll end up sticking a wrench back there to get it tight. So now it's snug enough to where this will still move around. And we're gonna go and install these bolts right here. We're gonna take these, your 30 and your 16 millimeter bolts, and they are going to be loosely installed in these. The reason why I keep them loose is because if you were to tighten this bolt down, then you wouldn't have any play to kind of get all this stuff lined up. I know some people were saying that it's taken them up to 2 hours to do this. I believe we're at about 30 minutes. So now that these are hand tight, I'm gonna get this bad guy on there. And the way that these two hold to each other with the 5 millimeter hex bolts, you can see right here, like the paint right here, or the metal is raised up a little bit, and where they started tapping the threads in here. So what I did is I just took the bolt and started it by hand. It got a little tight, but I knew it was going in straight. So I took my 5mm wrench, and you get it started, just go ahead and run it all the way down so you're not fighting with it. Stick this through. This is gonna go over the radiator, the front portion of the radiator. So you push the bolt all the way through the hole, and then you can just grip the rod, okay, and spin it. Get it snug. Getting this bar right here, it's a pretty close tolerance. So the reason why you leave these loose is so you can kind of maneuver them around a little bit. That way you can get the bracing bar lined up with the upper bracket. So you're gonna need to pinch the bar, obviously, because you don't want it moving. We're gonna get this snug. Go around the other side, and we're gonna hold this nut from moving. When you're tightening this up, you need to hold the other side from moving, or else the center bar will just keep spinning. Bam, now your center bar right here, your brace bar is nice and tight. Installation's almost done. I'm gonna take these bolts back out just a little bit, install some medium thread locker on them, and then put the covers back on. Last step is to put your little engine cover back on. Fit back in perfectly. Your 3mm hex bolt. Get it on. And you're good to go. Only took about 30 minutes to do. If you know what you're doing, it's really not that bad. The instructions are not very clear, but you know, we managed to get it done. Some views from the back. I know the pictures online don't really do it justice, but I think it looks very nice with this accessory rack right here. It's kind of an accessory rack. So they stick out probably 7 inches, 8 inches from the front. But they complement the lines pretty well, especially this the accessory bar for the fog lights. So guys, thanks for watching the install on the Hepco and Becker engine guards. If you like what you saw, comment. You know, if you got any questions, you know, just let me know. And thanks for watching. Bye.